It's pronounced Qashqai, by the way, which translates to horse with a white forehead, which is... anyways.
Weird name, good little cute ute, cooked up for the multitude of Canadian shoppers moving from small cars into small crossovers like this machine and its familiars. In a nutshell, well, Qashqai feels nicely fine-tuned and calibrated to be pretty darn good at what it does, and like many Nissans, it has a continuously variable transmission, or CVT, which has no gears, and this turned up a question from a reader. And it said, Justin, if a CVT transmission has no gears, then how can it have a manual shift or paddle shift mode? Or to put it simply, how can a transmission with no gears shift gears? Well, let me see if I can help explain. Alright, so here's a grossly oversimplified illustration that should help explain what's going on. In any transmission, you've got a lowest gear, which is first gear, and that's like the easy gear on your bicycle. There's also a highest gear, which is the final gear, sixth gear in a 6-speed transmission, eighth gear in an 8-speed transmission, so on. The highest gear is like the hardest gear on your bicycle. And so between this lower and upper limit, or the easy and hard gear, are more gears. So let's say that this is a 6-speed transmission. We'll say it's a manual transmission, but automatic or manual doesn't really matter. You've got the lowest gear, the highest gear, and 6 steps in total, so it looks something like this. First gear, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Or say a 3-speed automatic transmission, and same idea. Lowest possible gear, highest possible gear, and 3 steps in total. More modern cars sometimes use a 10-speed automatic transmission, and again, same principle. Lowest possible gear, highest possible gear, and a total of 10 steps in between. You'll notice that these diagrams all look like a staircase with a different number of steps for each one. And in all cases, you have a bottom step and a top step and a set number of steps in between. And you can only be on one of those steps at a time. You might also notice that the more gears you have, the smaller each step between them is. And so now the CVT transmission. It has a lower and an upper limit as well, but instead of a set number of steps in between, it's more like a ramp. And that means you can be anywhere between that upper and lower gear ratio limit instead of just in one of, say, 3, 6, or 10 specific places. The CVT gently glides between optimal positions, meaning that it never shifts gears since it doesn't have any preset gears or steps to move between, but rather it moves continually between appropriate points on the curve. Rather than a preset number of steps, you can be in an almost infinite number of different places along this curve. And generally that means your revs sort of just stay roughly steady or gently surge and then fall back down. Here is what that might look like from in the vehicle. The key here is that a CVT transmission helps to save fuel by allowing your engine to rev at a lower and steadier state more of the time because that drinks less gas. So to answer the question, how does a CVT actually shift gears? Well, it sort of works like this. When you use the manual shift mode, or when your CVT transmission fakes a gear shift to feel more conventional, it's just moving instantly from one point on this ramp to the other. So instead of slowly moving from, say, here to here in a continuous motion, the transmission just jumps from here to here quickly instead. It's like walking between 2 points on the ramp or jumping directly from one to the other. And so all said, though there are no actual preset gears, there are an almost infinite number of gear ratios that can be engaged between this lower and upper limit on the ramp. And now you know.